Welcome back to part 9 in this series of building a replica Kar 98. I've been working from back to front, from the rear sight to the middle band, and in the last video, I made the nose cap. While that's the last part that needed to be made, it's not the last part that will be modified. I'll turn my attention back to the bolt. For the first time in this project, I can take a shortcut and just buy a complete bolt. This is the only Kar 98 part I've ever seen for sale, but not at that price, and not at that price either. Plus, buying a bolt would go against everything I've worked towards in this series, making parts not just because that's what I need to do, but rather it's what I like to do. So what I'll be doing is modifying the handle on this bolt. The spoon-shaped bolt handle of the Kar 98 is very distinctive. However, it is very similar to the bolt of its immediate predecessor, the Kar 88. The wide, flat shape of it is much different than the round knob that's on most Mauser bolts. Though in comparison to the Kar 88 bolt handle, the Kar 98 may be a bit longer, extending down nearly to the trigger guard. And the angle of it matches that of the Kar 88. When the bolt is closed, the handle is tucked tight against the side of the rifle. I wouldn't be able to get my fingers in between it and the stock like I can on this K98K style bolt handle. I'll keep the bolt on the Kar 88 close by while I replicate it on the Kar 98 bolt. Comparing both, the shape of the spoon handle seems to start near the root. This is about where I'll be cutting the handle off. But first, I'll remove the Kar 98 bolt. I'll disassemble it down to just the bolt body. This bolt has a longer root at the base of the handle than the Kar 88 does, which is another reason why it sticks out further. I'll need to cut this right where the square root transitions into the round handle. Unfortunately, due to YouTube rules, I can't show the process of making the bolt handle, but here it is cut, and I drilled a hole for a small steel rod, which will serve to reinforce and help align the new bolt handle. To make the bolt handle, I considered a variety of materials before I found this mild steel flat bar. It's wide enough and more than thick enough to be shaped into the spoon bolt handle. I'll start with roughly marking the length of it. Then I can use the Kar 88 bolt, tracing around it to give me an idea of how the Kar 98 bolt handle would look. I'll get this cut out. It's a bit lopsided, but I can file it to shape later. It's also much thicker than needed. I'll again trace using the Kar 88 bolt. I'm not sure how much of this I can cut out with the bandsaw, but I'll give it a try. I stopped short of cutting off the excess material just yet. The bolt handle is very rough, but if you use your imagination, it's somewhere within here. The angle of it is tight against the stock. While it's still attached to the rest of the bar stock, I'll shape it a bit closer. After a lot of filing, the bolt handle is still oversized. However, the shape of it is much closer than before. This will save me time later on after it's attached to the bolt body, and it's harder to hold securely. I'll double check that it looks right on the rifle, and that it will sit at the correct angle. Next, I'll finally cut off this extra material. After that, I can drill the matching hole in the bolt handle. I cut off this piece of 1/8 inch rod to fit in between the bolt body and the bolt handle. This will provide extra reinforcement, rather than these two pieces butt welded up against one another. Though this piece still needs to be bent to place the bolt handle at the correct angle. I'll mark where that bend should be. Bending displaced just enough material that it now needs some persuasion to fit. But it's able to hold the two together. And they're at the correct angle, with the bolt handle being tight against the stock. But to prepare for welding, these flat surfaces need chamfers all around, in which the weld will go for better strength. Here you can see the areas where the weld will go. This allows the weld to penetrate deeper, resulting in a stronger bond. But this isn't ready for welding just yet. First, I need to take precautions to protect the areas that are heat treated. Those are the primary locking lugs, though those are far forward and away from the heat. Closer is the safety lug. And this camming surface used to cock the action. To protect those, I'll make a heat sink to go inside of the bolt, drawing heat away. I'll use a scrap piece of aluminum. This heat sink will pull heat away from the inside of the bolt, as well as the camming surface and the third locking lug. For the front locking lugs, the solution isn't as high-tech. It's simply a wet rag, or at this point it's just a rag. I'll wet it before welding. Which brings me to what is probably the most effective way of preventing heat damage, and that's to not put too much heat into the bolt to begin with. As I weld the bolt handle, I'm going to do short tack welds, maybe 3 to 4 seconds at the most. Then I'll allow the bolt to cool fully before another tack, and so forth until fully welded. I did one tack weld, but before I continue, I'll bring this back inside and check to see how everything is aligned. It's close, but not perfect, so I'll bend it into position. Then after letting this cool a bit more, I can weld again. I suppose someone using prolonged heat to bend a bolt handle should be more concerned with excess heat than I am, but it's never a bad thing to be prepared and prevent damage wherever possible. Here's the results of the welding. But before I can get a look at this in the rifle, I need to trim down the welds some, otherwise they'll interfere with the receiver and the stock. The bolt fits in the rifle now. The weld isn't interfering with its operation. The shape of the bolt handle still needs to be refined, but as far as how it's sitting, it's in the position that I want, tight against the stock, but with a bit of a gap. Next, I'll shape the bolt handle to match the Kar 88. The spoon end transitions into a rounded shape near the bolt root, where it again transitions to the square of the root. I'll start shaping in earnest now. Here's the bolt almost fully shaped. It still needs some fine tuning and polishing, but it's enough to move forward. Next, I'll add checkering to the underside of the bolt handle, which will be similar to the Kar 88 bolt, though a bit bigger. These look good, and they'll provide just enough grip. Next, I'll smooth and polish the bolt handle with increasing grits of sandpaper. After a lot of sanding, this is looking pretty good. I'm happy with the shape of the spoon bolt handle, as well as the checkering underneath. And with perhaps the most difficult part, how the cross-section of the handle blends first into a circle, then a square at the bolt body. The reflections in the polished metal tell me that the shape is correct. Next, I'll reassemble the bolt. Then I'll install it back into the rifle. It's a close match to the Kar 88 bolt handle, though it is longer, which seems to suit the look of the Kar 98 better, with the bolt handle being further to the rear. Working the bolt will take some getting used to, with it being so tight against the stock, but it does feel good initially. I'm happy with how it turned out, and though it could use more polishing, that's the bolt handle complete. Unlike the rest of the parts I've made or modified, it will stay in the white. Everything else I need to blue, which is what I'll be doing in the next video. Thank you for following along on this project, and thanks for watching.